With Season of the Deep, Bungie made a ton of changes to different exotic weapons and armor pieces in Destiny 2, and one of those exotics was Path of Burning Steps. When I read the exotic changes at first, I figured they would end up being extremely strong now, since they basically allow you to have roaming surges and an infinite damage buff on top of that too. Originally, before the change, Path of Burning Steps used to give a roaming damage buff only. So as long as you kept getting solar kills, you would get a stacking increase in your solar weapon damage up to 40%, which was the cap. The main issue was that this was a buff, and on a solar subclass, when you have something like Radiant, which is also a buff, these wouldn't stack, making the exotic kind of redundant, only really making your build stronger by 15%. The change this season fixes this though, because as of right now, these apply the exact same benefit as weapon surges. At ×4, we're only going to be getting a 25% increase to our solar weapon damage, which is a bit less. But unlike before, this now stacks with all buffs. So running it on a solar subclass with something like Radiant means these combine together now for a 56% damage increase in total. To show this off, you're going to see that we hit at base against Carl for 1567 damage in the head. With Radiant applied, this then is going to scale up by 25%, so we now reach a total of 1959 damage, which is going to be exactly that 25% increase that we expected. And then, if we combine this with Path of the Burning Steps on top of it, at max stacks, which is ×4, we're getting that additional 25% increase. So 2,448 damage is what we now hit, which is once again what we would expect to be seeing here with another 25%. So in total, that is our 56% increase from the base damage. So overall, in my opinion, the main issue was fixed with this update, and now there's another issue. Since weapon surges got way easier to use with the mod changes released in Lightfall, Path of Burning Steps is pretty useless, because you could always just start running 3 copies of weapon surges to give you an extra 22% increase in damage, so you're only really missing that extra 3%, which is barely noticeable. And on top of that, all you need to do is grab an Orb of Power to get max stacks instantly. Where with Path of Burning Steps, you need an average of 8 solar kills to get this stacked up, and only after that point can additional kills refresh the buff. So while these boots are going to be great for brainless run and gun play to have an increase in your weapon damage all the time, if you just sub them out for a few extra mods and make sure to constantly have Orbs of Power, you can free up your entire exotic slot and pretty much get the exact same effect. Overall, I do think for general play, where you do want other mods on your legs like Recuperation or Innervation, and you still want to run a build with surges, where you could use solar weapons effectively just for your ad clear or against majors and champions, these are fantastic. Not to mention that these do now allow you to technically run double energy surges, where you could have these solar surges on once again for general play and ad clear, and then run something like stasis surges for the new cold comfort rocket to use during DPS phases. Or you could always just swap your build out like most people do, going into a damage phase as well. I just feel like these changes were a bit weird to make, swapping from a buff to surges, where it just overall doesn't make that big of a difference. I really wish Bungie thought ahead a bit more and lowered the damage that you get, while still allowing it to stack with both surges and buffs, so it would be super useful, just not insanely overpowered. I'll have a full dim build linked below if you guys want to click that and apply it yourself, but either way, these are the main aspects that you're going to want to make sure are on any build to get things stacked up as easily as possible. Throwing Hammer is going to constantly let us proc Radiant, and then with this, we're also able to get solar kills to proc Path of Burning Steps. With that, I also think Thermites are one of the better options for ad clear so that you can keep getting those stacks up higher. Roaring Flames will also help make getting kills with your abilities to get stacks easier, and the same thing goes for Sol Invictus, which helps with kills, and then also is going to give your abilities back quicker. Make sure that you do have Ember of Torches on to actually proc Radiant from melee hits, and then Ember of Empyrean, so that as we keep getting solar weapon final blows once we're fully stacked out, we keep extending Restoration and Radiant effects, so we never have to re-proc either of these. Just like always, these are the mods that I'm using with this build. Most notably, we are running Solar Siphon since we're always on a solar weapon, so we can gen Orbs of Power. We can also create orbs with Heavy Handed through our hammer kills and things like Firepower with our grenade kills. And we also have Impact Induction so that anytime we hit an enemy with our hammer, we also get grenade energy through that as well. With all the Orbs of Power, we're using Innervation to get even more grenade energy back, since Thermites are going to come in clutch for stacking up that damage increase and Roaring Flames. And then we also have Recuperation so that those Orbs of Power heal us anytime we pick them up, on top of our Cure from the Hammer, and then Restoration through things like these Sunspots. Lastly, I wanted to end the video off by going over what I think are some of the best ad clear weapons that you can pair with this build. Sunshot or even something like Callous Mini Tool are both going to be really good against dealing with red bar enemy types, but as soon as you get up against some tankier enemies, these tend to fall off pretty quickly. Obviously, because they're special weapons, Acacia's Dejection and then something like Explosive Personality will be really good hybrids between damage against those tankier enemies and then still really good ad clear for red bars. This has a 15% buff from something like Frenzy, and then Acacia's can get a 20% buff through something like Paracausal Affinity to stack on top of Radiant and those surges that we're getting through Path of Burning Steps. As far as using a special weapon goes to deal damage against bosses, I would say Cartesian Coordinate is overall the best option, and then something like Lord of Wolves might be decent if you need quick burst damage. And then obviously, assuming you have all your stacks, I think Apex Predator is going to be one of the best overall options you can run on this build for just pure damage. That is it for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Burning Steps and the changes they received in the comments down below. And I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we run low mans and speedruns all the time. So a link to that and my Discord server are both going to be in the description as well. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.